My name's Zach Harper. I'm 35 years old, born and raised in Chicago. For the past 8 years, I've worked at a transportation logistics company downtown. Not exactly the kind of job you dream about as a kid, but it's stable, pays well, and honestly, I was pretty content with it. I handled digital routing, basically making sure trucks move when and where they should. There's a lot of screens, alerts, and troubleshooting, and even though it's not glamorous, it suits me. I'm the kind of guy who likes order, predictability, systems that make sense. My wife, Lily, started working at the same company about a year ago. That wasn't planned. We never intended to be one of those couples that works in the same office, but life has a way of lining things up in strange ways. She got hired as a supply chain analyst. Different department, but we shared some floor space, ran into each other in the break room. People found it cute, husband and wife sharing elevator rides and eating lunch together. I liked it too at first. There was a comforting rhythm to it. Lily and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. We met through friends at a music festival and hit it off right away. She was vibrant, spontaneous, and full of this confidence that drew people in. I've always been more reserved, thoughtful, maybe even too quiet sometimes, but she lit up the spaces I stayed in the corners of. We balanced each other. At least that's what I believed for a long time. Everything felt pretty normal until about 2 months ago. That's when the first crack appeared. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember that clearly because I had a meeting first thing, and Lily was in the kitchen getting ready at the same time as me. She had her hair wrapped in a towel and was sipping her coffee, flipping through some company PDFs on her tablet. It was just another day, nothing out of the ordinary, until her tablet buzzed with a new message notification. I only glanced at it because it lit up right next to me on the counter. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. It just caught my eye while I was reaching for the milk. The message was short, just one sentence, but I swear it changed something in me the moment I read it. Will you look as stunning for him today? The contact name said Claire, but the number didn't have a saved photo, and I didn't recognize it. It wasn't the message itself that sent me spiraling, at least not right away. It was the way Lily reacted. Her hand flew to the tablet faster than I've ever seen her move. She hit the lock screen button like it was instinct. Then she looked at me with this wide-eyed smile and let out a weird little laugh. The kind of laugh that doesn't match the room. "Oh my God, it's just Claire," she said, waving the tablet like it was all harmless. "She's making fun of me because of Brandon. Brandon Reed, our department head. Tall, charismatic, and the kind of guy who thinks every woman under 40 finds him irresistible. I've seen the way he acts, hovering too close at people's desks, complimenting skirts and smiles like we're still in the 90s. HR's probably got a folder with his name on it." Lily kept talking like it was all a big joke. "Claire bet me he'd make a comment about this dress today. I told her she was crazy, but she's just being dramatic." I nodded. I smiled back. I even laughed a little, pretending it was funny too. But my stomach dropped the second she mentioned the dress. Because here's the thing. Lily never used to wear stuff like that to work. Not that I'm some conservative guy who wants his wife covered head to toe. But she used to talk about how much she hated dressing up for the office. Said it was a waste, that she preferred to be comfortable and keep things simple. Lately though, her style had changed. Tight skirts, heels instead of flats, lipstick that stayed on long past lunch. And suddenly the message wasn't funny. It wasn't a joke. I wanted to ask her more. Press her. Ask why this Claire had her number but wasn't in her contact list. Or why the message sounded more like a warning than a joke. But Lily was already 2 steps ahead. She turned the whole thing on me before I could even open my mouth. "Are you seriously jealous right now?" she asked, grinning. "Babe, come on. It's a joke. You know how office gossip works. Claire's just being silly." I told her it wasn't that. I said I was just curious. But deep down, something felt off. My gut clenched in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself I was being paranoid. That it was just an awkward message at a weird time. That if something was really wrong, I'd know. But that feeling, the tension in her voice, the sudden shift in her posture, the way she locked the tablet the second I looked at it stuck with me. And I didn't shake it. Not that day. Not the day after. Not even now, weeks later. People talk about betrayal like it's a single moment, something loud and dramatic. But sometimes it starts with a whisper, with a message, with a look you weren't supposed to see. That message was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. And once you feel that, you start noticing everything else. The week after, she started leaving earlier for work. Said she wanted to get a jump on some reports. She used to ride with me, but suddenly she was grabbing coffee with the girls or meeting with Brandon to prep for a client call. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem controlling or insecure. But I started watching, listening. Not obsessively, at least not at first, but quietly, in the way someone does when they've just realized the story they're living in might not be the one they signed up for. I started checking my assumptions, thinking back to the last few months. Little things I had brushed off. Her suddenly changing her phone password because of a phishing scam at work. Her declining my offer to bring lunch because they were ordering in. Her telling me she had a headache when I leaned in to kiss her some nights, even though 5 minutes later she'd be scrolling through her phone with a smile on her face. I wanted to trust her. God, I really did. We'd built a life together. We talked about buying a house, maybe even kids someday. I wasn't ready to believe it could all unravel over a text message. But I also couldn't forget the way she looked at me that morning like I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. Like I'd stumbled into a conversation where I didn't belong. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe Claire really was just teasing her about our sleazy boss. But if it was, why did it feel like Lily had rehearsed that explanation? Why did it feel like the truth was just out of reach? I didn't confront her again. Not yet. I told myself I needed more than a single message. More than a gut feeling. But even as I said that, I knew something had shifted. And once that shift happens, you start to see the cracks in everything. The way she smiles when she checks her phone. The way she suddenly locks the bathroom door when she used to leave it wide open. The way she talks about Reed like he's charming in a harmless way when I've heard enough from coworkers to know his charm usually has strings attached. It's amazing how fast a small seed of doubt can grow. One message. One nervous laugh. And suddenly you're not sure what parts of your life are real anymore. That morning, standing in the kitchen with the fridge still open and the milk sweating in my hand, I smiled like everything was fine. But inside, something cracked. And it's been spreading ever since. After the message on Lily's tablet, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. I really did. But the truth is, something changed in me that day. I wish I could say I brushed it off, that I went back to trusting her like I always had. But no. I started paying attention in a way I never had before. Watching. Listening. Replaying conversations in my head. Not because I wanted to catch her doing something wrong, but because a part of me already knew I would. At first, it was subtle stuff. Things you could explain away if you really wanted to. Like how Lily suddenly started working late almost every night. Not just once or twice a week, every night. She'd say things like, "We're slammed on quarter-end reports," or "Brandon wants us to prep something for the board." Logical reasons? Reasonable. Except her role wasn't client-facing. And no one else from her team seemed to be staying that late. I'd ask around casually in the break room, just in passing, and people would say stuff like, "Oh yeah, Lily? Thought she left around 6, or didn't see her at the meeting this morning, maybe she worked from home." That didn't match what she told me. Not even close. Still, I kept it to myself. One Thursday, I got out early. System migration went smoother than expected, so I figured I'd surprise her. Grab takeout, swing by her office, maybe even drive home together like old times. She wasn't there. Her cubicle was dark. Clean. No signs she'd even been there that day. I asked building security under the pretense of needing help with the parking validation issue. They said Lily had scanned in around 8:42 a.m. but never scanned out. That alone didn't prove anything. People used different exits sometimes. But when I walked out to the company parking lot, I noticed something strange. Her car wasn't there either. I ended up calling her, keeping my voice casual. "Hey, just got off early. Want to grab dinner?" There was a pause, just half a beat too long. "Oh," she said. "I'm still in the middle of something. We're in the conference room doing review slides. Might be late." "In the office?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "With Brandon and a couple of the new hires." I didn't say anything. "Just okay, no worries." Then I hung up and sat in my car in silence for a long time, staring at the dashboard like it could give me answers. That was the moment I felt the shift from suspicion to certainty. After that, I started tracking small inconsistencies. Not to trap her, but because I needed to know if I was losing my mind or if my marriage was already gone and I just hadn't caught up to it yet. There was the time she said she was at a strategy meeting at HQ, but I saw her car parked in front of a neighboring building 2 blocks away. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just watching. I didn't see her go in or out. Didn't know if she was with someone. But I knew that wherever she was, it wasn't where she told me she'd be. Then came the earrings. One Friday night, she came home wearing these silver earrings I had never seen before. Small, elegant, definitely expensive. I noticed them right away. Lily didn't wear jewelry often, and she certainly didn't splurge on it without talking to me first. Nice earrings, I said. She smiled a little too fast. Oh, they're from the girls at work. Early birthday thing. Your birthday's not until next month. I know, she laughed, brushing it off. They were just being silly. Said I've been *ling it lately and wanted to spoil me. That might have been believable, except Lily didn't really have work friends like that. She had coworkers, sure, but I'd never heard her mention any of them doing things outside of work. Suddenly, they were giving her jewelry? That night, when she went to take a shower, I checked the jewelry box on her dresser. Still had the price tag inside the case, $289. No gift receipt. And the logo on the box wasn't from any of the chain stores around here. It was from a boutique in Lincoln Park that Brandon Reed had once bragged about visiting for special occasions. It hit me then, this wasn't about flirting or office banter anymore. It was about attention. Gifts. Time unaccounted for. And the language she used when she talked about him started changing too. She'd mention how funny Brandon was. Or how confident he came across in meetings. One night she even joked, that man walks like he owns every woman in the room. Good thing he's married or I'd be worried. She laughed when she said it. But it wasn't funny. Not to me. I couldn't help but think, do you want him to walk toward you like that? And then I noticed something else, she'd stopped talking about us. No more future plans. No talk about the trip to Maine we had on the calendar. No more when we buy a house or when we start a family. It was all, work's busy, or Brandon wants, or they need me. One night I asked her if she was happy. She blinked. What do you mean? Just, are you happy with how things are? With us? She stared at me like I'd asked if the sky was green. Of course I am, she said, a little too quickly. Why wouldn't I be? But her smile didn't touch her eyes. I stopped sleeping well after that. I started walking the dog later at night, even when I was exhausted. Just to clear my head. Just to try to shake the dread that kept creeping in like cold air under a locked door. But it was always there. And no matter how I tried to frame it, maybe she's just stressed, maybe I'm projecting, I couldn't ignore the pattern. The lies weren't even clever. That's what stung the most. It was like she wasn't even trying to hide them well. Like she thought I'd never put the pieces together. The moment that sealed it for me wasn't even dramatic. It was small. She came home late again and I was sitting on the couch watching some show I wasn't really following. She kissed me on the cheek and said, sorry, traffic was awful. She smelled like cologne. Not hers. Not mine. Something woodsy and sharp like cedar and smoke. Familiar. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. And then I watched her walk down the hall to the bedroom, heels clicking against the hardwood like G*NSH*TS. That was the moment the denial fell away completely. She was seeing someone else. I didn't know the details yet, but I didn't need them. I knew. And as I sat there alone in our quiet living room, the dog curled up at my feet, the truth hit me in a way that made my chest physically ache. She wasn't mine anymore. Not really. Whatever we'd had, whatever life we built together, it was already over. I just hadn't told her that I knew yet. It's strange how even when you already know the truth deep down, you still hope you're wrong. You hang on to the tiniest sliver of doubt like it's a life preserver. Maybe I misread things. Maybe there's a good explanation. Maybe I'm just tired and it's all in my head. But there's a point where all the guessing, all the wondering, it ends. And something takes its place. Something cold. Something sharp. A moment where guessing turns into knowing and you can't go back. That moment came on a rainy Wednesday evening. I had taken the day off. Our dog, Max, a 13-year-old golden retriever with arthritis and a heart full of loyalty, had a vet appointment in the suburbs. Nothing serious, just a checkup and some updated meds. I planned to take him, drop by my mom's place, then maybe get home before Lily. But traffic was lighter than I expected. I ended up back downtown a full hour early. It was around 5:15 p.m. when I pulled into the underground parking structure beneath our office building. The lights buzzed overhead, flickering faintly in the kind of way that always made me feel like I was walking into a bad dream. I figured I'd park, take Max upstairs with me for a minute. Everyone in the office loved him, and maybe surprise Lily if she was still around. As I pulled into the garage, something stopped me. Her car. Lily's blue sedan was parked 2 rows over, right near one of the side exits. The spot she never uses. She always told me she hated that section, said it was too dark, too tight. But there it was. Empty passenger seat. Lights off. Engine dead. I pulled into a space a few rows back and just sat there for a moment. One hand resting on Max's back as he panted quietly beside me. Something didn't feel right. I don't know what made me get out of the car. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I was done pretending. I told Max I'd be right back, left the windows cracked, and stepped into the cool, concrete silence. And that's when I saw it. 2 rows over, just past a support column, Lily's car wasn't empty after all. She was in the passenger seat. Brandon Reed was in the driver's seat. Their heads were close, too close. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't think. I just watched. Her face was tilted toward his. His hand was on the steering wheel, then moved to her knee. Not a gesture you make in public. Not a gesture you make unless something has already crossed a line. And then they kissed. Not a peck. Not something that could be excused. They kissed like people who had done it before. Like they'd been waiting all day to do it again. She touched his face like she knew it well. They didn't see me. I was behind a pillar, mostly in shadow. My heart was pounding, but my body felt frozen. The air was thick, and all I could hear was the hum of the overhead lights and the blood in my ears. It was like the whole world narrowed into that one moment. Her leaning in, their lips pressed together, her hand on his chest like it belonged there. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't emotional confusion. It wasn't a bad judgment call. It was deliberate, comfortable, mate. It was a relationship, and it wasn't new. I backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. My hands were shaking, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my keys across the garage or bang on the window like some jealous fool. No, I just turned around and walked back to my car like a man who had just watched something inside him die. Max was still there, loyal as ever, tongue hanging out, tail thumping lazily. I sat down, closed the door, and stared at the steering wheel. Then I started the engine and drove away. I didn't go home. I didn't go to a bar or call a friend or blast angry music down Lakeshore Drive. I drove to a park on the edge of the city, the kind of quiet place where the lake's just visible over the trees. I parked and let Max out. He trotted beside me, old legs stiff but willing, as we walked down a gravel path neither of us had been on before. That walk saved me. It gave me space to breathe, time to absorb what I'd seen, time to put away the part of me that wanted to deny it and start listening to the part that already knew. There was no misunderstanding, no wiggle room. No, maybe it's not what it looked like. I saw my wife kiss another man, her boss, in the parking garage beneath the same building where we both worked. Like it was nothing. Like I didn't exist. I don't remember much else from that night. Just that I eventually went home, took a long shower, fed Max, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Lily came home sometime after 9, said traffic had been insane. I didn't say a word, didn't even turn to face her, just muttered something like rough day, and rolled away. She kissed the back of my head before getting into bed. I felt it. I didn't move. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. I made coffee, packed her lunch like I always did, said good luck when she mentioned a presentation. And then I watched her walk out the door, heels clicking like they did every morning, her perfume lingering in the hallway like a ghost. I sat on the edge of the couch for a long time, staring at the closed door. Then I picked up my phone and called in sick. And I started planning. Not revenge. Not some dramatic blow-up. Something quieter. Something colder. Because what I felt that morning wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. I saw who she really was. And I knew what I had to do next. After I saw Lily with Brandon in the parking garage, after I watched them kiss like they were the only 2 people left on Earth, I knew something in me had changed. I didn't feel numb. I didn't feel destroyed. I felt cold, clear, like someone had poured ice water over every part of me that used to love her. I didn't confront her that night or the next. Not because I was afraid. Not because I didn't know what to say. But because I realized confrontation wasn't the point. She didn't need another argument. She needed to face what she had become, the person she had chosen to be. and I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of controlling how that happened. I didn't want an apology. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. So I made a plan. The opportunity presented itself almost immediately. A few days later, our company announced the annual charity gala was back on after 2 years of postponements. It was going to be held at the Grand River Hotel Ballroom downtown, fancy place, high ceilings, catered dinner, open bar, and a parade of corporate sponsors who liked to shake hands and write checks. The event was a big deal internally. Every department head would be there. Brandon, obviously. And Lily, of course, she'd been helping organize the logistics. Perfect. The moment I saw the email, I knew that was where it would happen. Not in a private fight, not behind closed doors, but in front of everyone who had ever looked up to them. Everyone who had ever believed their masks. Exposure. Not vengeance. Just light. The kind that burns away everything fake. First, I needed proof. Not just what I had seen with my own eyes, I needed something no one could deny. That meant footage. And lucky for me, our building's parking structure had cameras. I'd seen the signs posted. I even remembered the model Axis dome cameras. High-res, continuous loop, stored off-site but accessible by building security with the right permissions. So I paid a visit to Larry. Larry was one of our building's head security guys, ex-military, quiet, and more than happy to talk if you offered him a coffee and treated him like a human being. I'd chatted with him plenty over the years, mostly small talk about sports or weather. That morning, I brought him a large dark roast and 2 jelly donuts. We stood in the back office, tucked behind the lobby desk as he pulled up the time-stamped footage. I gave him the exact day and time. He didn't ask why. I watched the moment again on screen, this time, my wife sliding into the passenger seat of Brandon's car, her hand brushing his. The kiss. The stillness of it. The silence. Larry didn't say anything as the clip ended. He just exhaled slow. "You want a copy?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded once. "Yeah. Just for personal reasons." He didn't ask what those reasons were. He just handed me a flash drive. I thanked him, shook his hand, and walked out of that office feeling like I had just armed myself with something heavier than any P*N. From there, everything was about timing. I made multiple copies of the video, stored them on cloud drives, 2 USBs, and even burned a backup to disk. I wasn't taking any chances. I knew if Lily or Brandon found out what I was planning, they'd bury the truth under charm and excuses and HR policies. So I said nothing. At home, I pretended everything was fine. Lily kept smiling, kept kissing me goodnight, kept playing the role of doting wife. It was nauseating. She'd ask about my day and I'd tell her stories like nothing had changed. She laughed. She cooked. She even suggested we take a weekend trip sometime soon, just the 2 of us. I nodded, played along. But inside, every moment with her felt like acting in a play I didn't audition for. The night of the gala came faster than I expected. Lily was buzzing with energy as she got ready. She wore a new emerald green dress that shimmered under the bathroom lights. It was a shade I had never seen her wear before, and it looked almost identical to the one I'd once seen Mrs. Reed wear in a holiday party photo. She stood in front of the mirror adjusting her earrings, smiling to herself. "You think Brandon will notice?" she asked with a playful grin. I looked up from my phone. "What?" She laughed. "The dress. He's always got something to say." I smiled just enough to hide my disgust. "I'm sure he'll love it." On the way to the gala, she talked nonstop about the guest list, the sponsors, the decorations. She said the board would be watching Brandon closely. He was in line for a VP promotion. I listened, nodding, adding the occasional or makes sense. All the while, the flash drive in my jacket pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. The ballroom at the Grand River was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tables, a live quartet playing jazz. Everyone was dressed to impress: company execs, donors, PR reps. I recognized at least 30 people from various departments. Brandon arrived about 20 minutes after us, wearing a tux and his usual smug grin. He and Lily exchanged only a brief glance across the room. Professional, distant, carefully staged. They thought they were subtle. They had no idea. When the dinner ended, the program began. Speeches, presentations, a slideshow about the charity our company had sponsored, some youth leadership program tied to community outreach. It was all smooth, predictable, corporate polished. And then it was my turn. See, a few years ago, I'd helped develop the company's internal presentation software, a slideshow tool that synced to the ballroom's AV system. Lily had even used it for logistics briefings. That meant I knew the admin codes. I knew how to switch files behind the scenes. And I knew no one would question it if I stood by the control booth. So when the executive director gave his final speech and the screen went dark before the closing video, I stepped back into the shadows and entered the override. I replaced the final file with the security footage. Then I pressed play. At first, there was just silence. A faint static buzz. Then the image appeared, dim lighting, the underground garage, timestamped in the corner. Brandon's car. Lily stepping into it. Him reaching for her hand. Then the kiss. The entire room went still. Forks clinked against plates. Then nothing. I watched, stone-faced, as the footage played out in full. No one said a word. In the front row, I saw Mrs. Reed go pale. She stood up halfway through, whispered something to the man beside her, and walked out, her heels echoing louder than the music had minutes earlier. Brandon stood too, face drained of color, his jaw working but saying nothing. Lily froze. She looked at the screen. Then at me. Then back at the screen. Her hand went to her mouth. And then I ended the feed. I left the booth and walked straight past the tables, past the stunned faces and silent mouths. People parted like water. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Because nothing I could have said in that moment would have hit harder than what they had just seen. I stepped outside into the cold night, the city lights reflecting off the windows like a million eyes blinking at once. I felt the first full breath in weeks fill my lungs. Behind me, inside the ballroom, the fallout had only just begun. I stood just outside the ballroom's massive glass doors, my breath fogging in the crisp Chicago night air. The muffled echo of stunned voices and clinking glasses bled through the panes behind me, but I didn't turn back. Inside, the facade had cracked open, and there was no sealing it shut. I had done what I came to do. I hadn't stormed the stage. I hadn't thrown accusations or made a speech. All I did was let the truth speak for itself. 1 minute of silent footage had done more damage than any words ever could. And now I waited to see who would survive the fallout. About 5 minutes later, the doors opened behind me. A gust of heat and murmurs spilled out into the night before the door clicked shut again. I didn't look up until I heard familiar heels clicking across the granite steps. Lily. She was breathless. Staggering slightly in those emerald heels, one hand clutching her purse like it might hold her dignity together. Her eyes were wide, shining in a way I'd only ever seen once at her father's funeral years ago. But this wasn't grief. It was panic. Zach, she choked out. What the hell was that? Why would you? She couldn't even finish a sentence. Her voice collapsed under its own weight. I didn't say anything. Just looked at her. Really looked at her. Her dress, once elegant, now felt like a costume. Her makeup, a flawless just an hour ago, had begun to streak under the weight of tears and humiliation. Her posture, once proud and polished, was folding inward like scaffolding stripped of support. You knew, she whispered, stepping closer. You've known. I nodded once. For how long? Long enough, I said. She looked down, blinking too fast. Zach, please? We can talk about this. This wasn't supposed to. Her voice cracked again. You didn't have to do it like that. Yes, I said quietly. I did. Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand to stop her. I didn't want an apology, Lily. I didn't want another lie. I wanted you to see yourself clearly. The version of you I've been seeing every day and trying not to believe in. She shook her head. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. The board was there. Brandon's wife, she saw it. The whole company, That's the thing, I interrupted, my voice calm. You've spent months making me feel invisible. Making our marriage a background detail in your climb up whatever ladder you thought Brandon Reed was holding for you. You weren't worried about embarrassment when you were in his car. Her expression twisted, part rage, part guilt. That video, how did you even get it? I work in digital logistics, remember? I said. I know how systems talk to each other. I know who handles the feeds. You weren't exactly hiding. She took a shaky step forward. Can we please go somewhere and talk? Privately? No. Zach, you don't understand, he said. It was temporary. That we weren't hurting anyone. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You weren't hurting anyone? She flinched. Look, she said, voice rising, I messed up. I know that. But you can't act like you're completely innocent here either. You've been distant. Cold. Like all you care about is keeping things tidy. I blinked slowly. And you solved it by sleeping with your boss. She didn't answer. Her arms dropped to her sides and she stared at the pavement like it might open and swallow her whole. Just then, the doors opened again. Brandon Reed stepped out. Still in his tux, but stripped of the swagger that usually came with it. His tie was loose. His hair, usually slick and perfect, looked like he'd run his hands through it 100 times in the past hour. Behind him, a small cluster of murmuring guests was breaking apart, some leaving, others whispering into phones. The room was no longer a gala. It was a crime scene. He saw us and hesitated. I watched his jaw work through the silence like he was trying to chew up a lie and swallow it before it reached his mouth. "Zach," he said, this is all a misunderstanding." I laughed again, louder this time. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, I think we all need to take a breath. I'm sure there's a way to resolve this without it getting uglier than it already has." "I think it's already ugly enough," I said. Behind him, two members of the board, Arnold Trask and Dana Lee, emerged. They didn't speak to Brandon. Didn't look at him. Just walked past, tight-lipped and quiet. Lily turned to Brandon. "What are we going to do?" He looked at her like she was a problem he hadn't realized he'd created. "You might want to talk to HR tomorrow morning," he muttered, already turning away. "Wait, what?" she said, her voice breaking. "You're not going to back me up?" He didn't answer. He disappeared down the front steps and into a waiting car without another word. And just like that, he was gone. Lily stood in silence, staring after him. Her whole body sagged. Her lips trembled, and I could see it in her eyes. This was the first moment she realized she was alone. "Zach," she whispered, barely audible. "Please don't walk away." I looked at her one last time. Not the woman I married. Not the partner I had once trusted with every part of myself. But the person she had become. And for a flicker of a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. Not because she didn't deserve the consequences, she absolutely did, but because I could tell she had been lying to herself just as much as she'd been lying to me. She thought she was playing a game with Brandon. She didn't realize she was the pawn. "I didn't walk away," I said. "You pushed me. Slowly. Repeatedly. You just never thought I'd push back." I turned and walked toward the valet line, not waiting for a response. As I stepped into my car, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily was still standing on the steps, arms folded, trembling in the cold, mascara streaked like war paint down her cheeks. A dozen people walked past her without a second glance. And I realized, for the first time in our entire relationship, she wasn't the center of the room anymore. She was the cautionary tale. I drove off without another word. And behind me, the hotel lights flickered in the dark like the last sparks of something that had already burned out. The Monday after the gala felt strangely quiet. No buzzing alarms. No breakfast routine. Just silence. I stayed home, used a vacation day, and let the morning pass without checking emails. I already knew what I'd find. Around noon, I got a message from a friend in HR. Just 2 lines. "You weren't here, but it all came crashing down. Reads out. Lily too." Whole board saw it. By mid-afternoon, the internal memo went out. Breach of company ethics was the phrasing. Brandon Reed had resigned, though we all knew what that meant. Lily didn't even get a farewell email. Just a quiet deletion of her account and her name removed from the staff directory. She tried calling me that night. 5 times. I didn't answer. I didn't need to hear the script. I knew it by heart already. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we fix this? No. She didn't just betray me. She betrayed the version of herself she used to be. The woman who used to talk about loyalty. About building a life that meant something. That woman vanished long before the kiss in the parking lot. A few days later, I saw her outside our building, waiting near my car. She looked smaller, somehow a hair unstyled, heels traded for sneakers, wearing a coat too big for her. As I approached, she took a few steps toward me. "Zach, please," she said. "Don't leave me like this. I've lost everything, my job, my reputation. I have nothing left." I stood still. Calm. "You had everything," I said. "You traded it. For what? To chase someone else's attention? To wear someone else's life like it fit better than your own?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel moved. "Just tired. I was unhappy," she whispered. "So you made us both miserable." She reached for my arm. "We can fix this." I stepped back. "No. I don't want to fix what you broke to pieces. I want to start over. But not with you." She didn't say anything else. Just stood there, hands shaking, watching me walk away. That was the last time I saw her. Sometimes people think betrayal ends in screaming matches or throne plates. But sometimes it ends in silence. In letting go. And as I walked into the evening air, free of the weight, free of the pretense, I realized something important. She chose to chase a version of herself that was never real. And I chose something better. I chose myself.